Let me ask you something. What were you doing when you were 20 years old? College? Trying to figure life out? Maybe just scrolling your phone at 2 a.m.? Now imagine this instead. At 20 years old, a young man becomes king and decides he's going to conquer the entire known world. Sounds like the plot of a movie, right? Except it actually happened. And the man behind it was Alexander the Great. But before he became the legend history talks about, he was just a kid growing up in Pella, the capital of Macedon. Now here's where things start to get interesting. Alexander wasn't just raised by any parents. His father was Philip II of Macedon, one of the most powerful military leaders in Greece. His mother was Olympias, who believed her son was literally destined for greatness. And if that wasn't enough pressure already, guess who his teacher was? None other than Aristotle. Yeah, that Aristotle. So picture this for a second. One of the smartest philosophers in human history, teaching a teenager who would later conquer half the world. Honestly, that classroom must have been wild. But wait, the story gets even stranger. Because Alexander's first big victory didn't happen in battle. It happened with a horse. Okay, imagine this scene. A massive horse is brought into the palace courtyard. The trainers can't control it. The soldiers can't ride it. Everyone thinks the horse is completely wild. But young Alexander steps forward and says something like, "Guys, I think the horse is just scared of its shadow." Yeah, apparently everyone else missed that. So he turns the horse toward the sun, climbs on it, and rides away like it's nothing. That horse was named Bucephalus. And after watching this, his father reportedly said something legendary. "My son, find a kingdom equal to your ambitions. Macedon is too small for you." Now at the time, that probably sounded dramatic. But a few years later, it turned out to be completely true. Because not long after that moment, everything changed. In 336 BC, Philip II of Macedon was assassinated. And just like that, Alexander became king. Now imagine being 20 years old and suddenly in charge of an entire kingdom. That's already a lot. But Alexander didn't just want to rule Macedon. No. He had a much bigger target in mind. And this is where things get bold. Because the most powerful empire on earth at the time was the Persian Empire, ruled by Darius III. So naturally, Alexander decided to invade it. Yeah, just like that. But here's the crazy part. He didn't bring millions of soldiers. He crossed into Asia with only about 40,000 men. And if you're thinking, that sounds like a terrible idea, you're not alone. But then the battle started. The first major fight happened at the Battle of the Granicus. And somehow, Alexander won. Then came an even bigger confrontation. The Battle of Issus. This time Alexander faced Darius III himself. Picture the moment. One ruler commands the largest empire on earth. The other is a 22-year-old king who refuses to lose. And once again, Alexander wins. Darius runs from the battlefield. Not exactly the kind of headline a world emperor wants. But now Alexander had momentum. And once a conqueror gets momentum, things move fast. After those victories, the doors of the Persian Empire started opening one by one. Alexander marched into legendary cities like Babylon, Susa, Persepolis. The once unstoppable Persian Empire had collapsed. At this point most kings would probably say, "Okay, that's enough conquering for one lifetime." But Alexander? He looked at the map and basically said, "Let's keep going." And this is where the journey turns into something unbelievable. Alexander pushed his army farther than most people thought possible. He entered Egypt, where people welcomed him as a hero. While there, he founded a city that still exists today, Alexandria. Now pause for a second. How many people can say they built cities that still exist 2,000 years later? But Alexander wasn't finished exploring. Because after Egypt, he marched east again. All the way into India. And that's where he faced one of his toughest opponents. In India, Alexander fought the Battle of the Hydaspes against Porus. And this battle was brutal. War elephants. Heavy rain. Exhausted soldiers. But Alexander eventually won. After the battle, he asked Porus a famous question. "How should I treat you?" Porus replied, "Like a king." And honestly, that answer impressed Alexander so much he allowed Porus to keep ruling. But something else happened around this time. Something Alexander didn't expect. His army finally had enough. Think about it. The soldiers had marched thousands of kilometers. They had been fighting for almost 10 years. So when Alexander said he wanted to keep going deeper into India, the army basically said, "Yeah, no." And believe it or not, that's the only thing that ever stopped Alexander. Not defeat. Not an enemy army. Just tired soldiers who wanted to go home. So Alexander finally turned back. But the story doesn't end there. Because the ending of his life is just as mysterious as his rise. In 323 BC, while staying in Babylon, Alexander suddenly became ill. Within days, he died. He was only 32 years old. Let that sink in. By 32 he had built an empire stretching from Greece to India. And when someone asked who should inherit the empire, legend says Alexander whispered, "To the strongest." Not exactly the most peaceful plan. And as you can probably guess, that caused a lot of chaos. After his death, Alexander's generals fought each other and divided the empire. But the impact he left behind was enormous. Greek culture spread across huge parts of the world, creating what historians call the Hellenistic period. A time when ideas, science, language, and cultures mixed in ways never seen before. And even today, people still ask the same question. What if Alexander had lived longer? Would he have conquered the entire world? We'll never know. But one thing is certain. Alexander the Great came closer than almost anyone in history. And that's why he's remembered as the man who almost conquered the world.